Thank you all for coming, and thank River Road for providing this wonderful space, and Joan and Erica for doing 90% of everything that has to happen. You know, I just show up with crackers and cheese. um, I used to be known, back in my college days, by my major professor as the late Miss Blind. And I think I must now begin to be known as the unpublished Ms. Gatchell. Haven't done any of that for a long time. I have not, in fact, been writing for quite some time. So what you're getting today is essentially a retrospective. However, there's enough of it that I keep pulling different pieces of it out. And I'm going to start just with one that fell on my foot, and I realized that I kind of like it. So I'm going to read it. It's called Near Cape Blanco. Sleeping on deck with the sea in my ears, that long gray sound that ripples and pulls, held and swung, wrapped in black. All night I lie listening, floating awake, asleep, awake, suspended, drifting through gulls' cries, wind, waves, words, the day's polyphony of voices, toward silence, that deeper sea, sounded by dreams. And when I rise, touch surface, over the ocean, the night sky breaches, its vast, dark body barnacled with stars. And this is what my mother used to call a slumgullion. And I may have picked up the wrong piece. Yeah, I did. I picked up the wrong. Okay, we'll just start with what turns up. This is called Late January. Survival notes. Try not to read in your sleep. Too soon to dream of gardens, the long warm hands of sunlight, picnics. Instead, dream red and orange, apples, soft sweaters, flowers in paper packets, tangerines. When you wake up, look past the tilting heaps and slithers, catalogs, papers, books, old photographs and lists, a knot of rain gear and worn boots, outdated calendars, scratched records, a cat asleep among the rumpled hills of bedclothes. To the new gray light filling the window. Those seed heads, foxtail, cocklebur, and teasel, saved in a stone jar on the sill. Let your eye catch first in their spiky promise. Seeds can be dry and thorny, wait out the cold in a tangle. Why not you? Uncurl. Get both feet on the floor. Don't let your eye touch words. Hoard your attention. Walk out past the newspapers, the novels, the crossword puzzle, into the cold day. Notice how bright the raindrops are, rows of round lights strung on the empty clothesline, clinging to every twig, white globes of sky. The world is brown and gray, but even so early, into this sharp, wet air, green blades grope up through the rumple of old earth, dry stalk, weed thatch, the field's pale fur. Be still and watch. It's most important not to watch yourself. Look at what's here. Small wings in the air and sparrow voices. Sun through the clouds. A pool of pale gold light blooms in the far pasture. A rift of blue opens over the apple tree for the Steller's jay, sassing the world from its highest branch. Not so blue as me, he shouts, then swoops, an iridescent streak across the ragged garden. The clothesline raindrops hold the round world. Turn clear. Fill up with pure light where the brief sun touches. This poem is about where you are at this moment. You, not me. You. Have you noticed what the air smells like? How it feels against your forehead? Which way it moves? The texture of what's under your feet? The shape your body makes in space and the shape of the space around it. How old is the moon tonight? Is it raining? Or has it rained? When did it stop? Is there a window? A door? If you picked a leaf from the nearest tree, what kind of leaf would it be? Is there a rain puddle outside the window to reflect the moon? Where will the moon rise? Which way is north? How far to the nearest person who looks back into yourself when you offer them your eyes? What color are their eyes? What will you tell them about the moon? What will you ask them? This is a very old one, which was written as in response to an exercise at a workshop. It's called Love. Alarm goes off at 5 o'clock. A knife. I twist it, standing in the shower. Other women have babies. I have cancer. You pull on your boots. You have to be at work by 6. I soap the breast I'll lose on Wednesday, smother tears I can't hold under water, wanting you not to know. You pull back the curtain, climb in, and hold me, soaking your shirt, your jeans, your thick-soled boots. This is just gonna be potluck, people. Where I almost live, which is a borrow from William Stafford, which I snatched for a first line and title. Where I almost live, some people don't have a town, or it's made of bark, twisted roots, rock slides, gravel, many colors of earth and leaves. And the people who live there whisper and chirp and hum. They murmur and squeak, yelp, roar, warble and toot and buzz, but they don't use dictionaries or worry over syntax. Everything they say is improvised. They exaggerate, advertise, quarrel. There is persuasion and argument, but conversations are never recorded or sold. It's all free speech and silence, that most elaborate diction. I am. I want. I challenge. Danger. Food. Welcome. Darling. Enemy. Child. Little dark houses with wild green yards. All their fire comes from the sun. Luminance. There are people who carry light, glowing a little, faint stars when you look beside them. Encountered, talked to, they absorb light like anybody else. But when you look back casually at their shadow, there on the edge of your mind, there is a kind of luminous flicker that pushes against the dark. They may be dark, and seen only briefly from a distance that seems cold. But there is a slight click, a shutter closes, and as darkness and distance grow, that picture develops. You carry it with you in an odd side pocket. Find yourself taking it out, looking again at that small glow. Like a quick, live smile from a stranger on a gray street. It kindles the day, unstiffens cold fingers, unexpectedly lights the heart. This was written to honor my favorite uncle, my glamorous highly intelligent, world-class biochemist uncle who used to zoom into our world at least once a year and just dazzle us all with his wit and his enthusiasm and his craziness. He spent his last years in Yunqing, and I was able to spend a lot of time with him. And in his last years, when he got bored with Mandarin Chinese, which he spent several years learning, he took up fiction writing and gave me a whole lot of trouble because I was writing poetry, and he said poetry didn't count. But what was I writing? And, he was vastly influential and in my development as a lover of words, among other things. This is called obedience. He was gone when I got back. You know how you have to tell the dog when it wants to come with you? No. You go back. You have to stay and watch things. Go on. It was like that. He'd had a major attack and then a relapse. Things didn't look good. I was due to go off to a writers' conference. He'd always say he didn't understand poetry. And what was I writing now? Had I sent it out? Piker, he'd say. I've got 10 times as many rejection slips as you have. Here's the new story. Tell me what you think. Be tough. I want it right. 40 years telling 80 years how it should go. I'd stumble along, trying to say what I got, what I didn't get, and maybe why. He listened hard, the way he did everything. When I checked in on Wednesday, he wasn't breathing easy, but he always wanted to talk. Thoreau? That's not poetry, just damn good sense. In the kitchen, I said to my aunt, I think I'd better not go. And the voice from the living room sofa said, no, you go. Go on. I didn't see him again. Go on. I mind. This is one he would have really liked. Sorry he didn't get to hear it. It's called The Old Wife Speaks Her Mind. I said, "Hey, give me a break." And they said, "Take it." But the minute I started to toot my own horn, they announced that silence was golden. Hell of a note. And now they tell me rare June days are a dime a dozen and the moon burns kerosene. Why bother? The sun is fire enough. And keeping it bottled up is just asking for spilt milk to cry over. I'd just sit tight and count my chickens, but they won't hold still for it. They're all out dodging the traffic, making it to the other side of the road with the skin of their teeth, and they're getting scarce. Listen, people who live in canvas houses shouldn't dance for rain, let alone paying the piper cub to seed the clouds. But who listens to me? They're all too busy turning a deaf ear and a fast buck, looking for someone to pass it to. I mean, it's a dog's day any way you slice it. I keep thinking I've reached the end of my tether. But honey, let me tell you, there's always a new leash on life. This is from the progressive manuscript called Life in the Nearby Forest. It's called The Man Who Keeps Attack Goats. My nearest neighbor's getting strange, locking his doors at night. I think it's living alone out here so far, and everything leafing out, moving in on him. Red dock and thistle making a stand all over the lawn, wild grass sprouting his doormat. His garden's fallen into native hands, all green, reaching. When I stop by, he's sharpening his scythe at the kitchen table, has his hoe propped beside his bed, tells me his bonfire of seed catalogs and gardening books damn near burned down the barn. He keeps attack goats, trained to browse on command. Next, I see him at the hardware store, standing in front of the herbicide shelf, clutching his list, swearing he won't be infiltrated, can hear the dry beans in their jar plotting to bore from within. He won't eat anything with leaves. Last night, he came by asking to borrow 10 pounds of salt and the blowtorch. I offered him lettuce plants, new potatoes, our first cabbage, and now he walks by on the opposite side of the road and doesn't wave back. This is from Summit Creek Journal, dated September 9th. If you live in steep green country where west winds carry the smell of the sea, you know why they call this season fall. That's what the rain does every day. Our weathers come back. It's business as usual after that brief gold flash through the leaves. Summer's over. Sun is rare again. I rush to sit by the creek between showers, and even as I lean back to look up at the quick blue sky, the next shower rises over my shoulder, dark clouds round with rain. Leaves relax, tall grasses curve toward earth. The grain of weathered wood is like worn velvet, fringed with gray-green lichen, tiny emerald moss. Rain fills everything full, smooths wrinkles from sun-baked skin. Even crickets' voices slow and mellow, drowsing toward the cold. The river, when it trips over a rock, roars with laughter and falls, headlong, exuberant, delighted to tumble on. I stumble so often. I should take river lessons in the art of falling on instead of down. Sorry about this. Lack of organization is one of my besetting sins. This is called Lodestar, another piece of the letter. I think I have said before, and many of you have heard me say that I asked Bill Stafford years ago at a workshop, very anxiously, if I could write to him. And he stared off into space and he said, well, some do, some don't. We'll see. I've been writing to Bill ever since. I never sent any of the letters, but as he foretold me, several of them have turned into poems, and this is one of them, written shortly after his death. Lodestar, another piece of the letter. Dear Bill, I wake without alarm at 4, your hour, mine too. I bundle into my jacket, step out into the dark. The wind chime in the pear tree says one note, silver and solitary as the moon, that worn, bright face setting behind the oak trees. I walk the river road, watching dawn come, watching Orion fade into the tender sky above the field, talking to you. This conversation's been going on a long time, since I first read a poem of yours and knew I'd found a friend. I still wish we'd been neighbors, borrowing tools, discussing the weather and the wars, admiring the dahlias, bringing good talk and bread hot from the oven to supper on Saturday night. I wish I told you how much it's light enough now to go on writing your letter, the one I never mail. There's a little chill breeze picking up, nudging the dandelion puffs in the grass, stirring around among the corn stalks and the last bright, ragged October zinnias beside the squash patch. I think toward you, and as always, you are as far, as clear, as steady as the last star riding high and west above the dark old trees that line the river. I don't miss you these notebook and coffee cup mornings because you're still here in my mind, and the conversation, as always, goes on. What I miss is knowing that you are alive in the world somewhere, living your separate, faraway life, writing it down to share, lending your hand. For living your separate, faraway life, for writing it down to share, for lending your hand. Bill, I've never said thank you. Whenever we did meet, I always felt shy with my empty pockets, but you filled them up. Still do. We've been friends a long time. Thanks for dropping by in that dream, the one where you said, Martha, relax. You're not late, we're just getting started. Pull up a chair. And I did. I do. I will. I like your new shirt, the color of sunset or sunrise, that rosy amber coral color flooding the eastern sky behind the black stand of young pine trees. Here, this minute, now. I think that is one more. Okay. This is called Barnacles. She goes out with the tide, exploring their crusted villages. Across wet rock, she clambers from slant to slant, her feet bitten, cold toes gripping stone. Goose barnacles, a phalanx of plated beaks, each anchored by dark elastic muscle. Touched, they retract into the rock. Acorn barnacles, volcano shapes, clusters of spectral nuns, skull faces framed in cowls of ridged white bone. Abrasive forces make life difficult. The tide turns in. She climbs the dune's high shoulder, watches fog slowly erase the headland. She thinks of houses, how to build shelter with her skin. Thank you.